And now that we're 8 episodes into Power Rangers Super... Okay, and go. Hello there, brave... Pirate, are you sure that we're recording?
Yes, go!
Okay, sorry. Make sure to edit this part out, by the way. Hello there, brave warriors. I'm the Tangerine Knight, and welcome to another... Oh, right. Welcome to another end of season, but middle of season video. Okay, good. So, we all know that in the 90s, the 1990s, Mighty Morphin Power Rangers was such a big hit in the 90s that... wait, I said that already. That MMPR was such a success that other companies tried to replicate the formula to catch the same lightning in a bottle. Do you get it? Because the logo of the show... Anyway, even Saban himself... Saban, they tried other shows to replicate that same level of success and have more success. Can we cut that beat? So, as you could maybe sense, it's 10 best time again. Hooray! It was tricky because it was actually hard to make a complete list of 10. But I did it. Am I doing Mr. Oh, keep going. Okay. A couple of entries on the list might raise some eyebrows with among you all, but don't worry, I'll be sure to explain them as they come up. Okay then, looks like it's time... Pause. Kaizoku, turn it off.
Gladly!
But you know, it's not actually a bad idea. Let's run with it. Number 10, Ninja Turtles, The Next Mutation. And right off the bat, we're starting with a questionable entry. Obviously, the Ninja Turtles are not a spin-off or knockoff of the Power Rangers. They were inspired by Daredevil, actually, and predate the Power Rangers by a good few years. However, especially when considering that this show was made by Saban, it's pretty obvious that this particular show was an attempt to create a Power Rangers-like Ninja Turtles live-action series. If you think about it, the potential for this to be a success was already there, because all 3 of the live-action Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movies had come out before this series aired. And controversy, I hear it gets video views, but that's not why I feel this way. Something that a lot of people really hate this show for is something I actually liked about it. Venus de Milo. Yes, I was actually happy that there was finally a female Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle, because I kinda like female representation in my hero shows. However, something that I did agree with other fans was a misstep was the fact that the 4 main male turtles were no longer brothers, and other than that, this show was just really, really badly written. The characters were terrible, and that's something that we Ranger fans actually got a first-hand taste of when the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles from The Next Mutation teamed up with the Space Rangers. It was just terribly written and characterized, and really, the clearest statement I can give on my thoughts on this series is represented in this. I actually sat down to watch it on Netflix with the intent of watching the whole thing over a couple of weeks. I got through 3 episodes. Ooh, shell-shocked. Number 9, Masked Rider. Ah, another Saban product. a show so bad that it took 13 years for Toei to trust anyone in the US with taking another crack at adapting Kamen Rider. And maybe we'll see that show on this list as well? Just like the next Mutation, I consider this here on the list because while this Kamen Rider adaptation is clearly not directly taking off from Power Rangers, even though it was launched with a backdoor pilot during Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, it was clearly still going for the same audience. Masked Rider was not a good television show. I only rank it ahead of Ninja Turtles Next Mutation on this list because at least Masked Rider was a hero transformation show that featured Japanese footage being adapted, whereas Ninja Turtles The Next Mutation was just what if the live-action Turtles movies were on TV instead. Masked Rider very clunkily combined a 90s family sitcom with Japanese footage, Kamen Rider Black RX, that was even older than Jew Ranger when Mighty Morphin Power Rangers came out, making the switch to that footage even more obvious. I think one of the biggest mistakes that Masked Rider made was actually not working with that backdoor pilot in Mighty Morphin Power Rangers that I just mentioned, and giving us hopes of seeing the Rangers. I do get that the ratings for Power Rangers itself were starting to decline, but I would think that the hopes of seeing the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers on Masked Rider could have helped Masked Rider's ratings. And actually, the show did surprisingly well, not great really, but better than you might think, and came pretty close to getting more episodes in another season. However, it did give us Furbus. All hail Furbus. Number 8, Big Bad Beetleborgs. This one might actually get me a lot of flack being this low on the list because while Masked Rider is pretty universally disliked in the fandom, Big Bad Beetleborgs actually has a lot of fans. Do you folks remember Justin, the Blue Turbo Ranger? Do you remember at the time wondering why Zordon would possibly pick a child to be a Power Ranger? Well, it was all due to Big Bad Beetleborgs. Triple B was a series about 3 younger children, Justin's age when he was a ranger, that loved the eponymous comic book series. They end up exploring a haunted house, as you do, and they discover a phantasm named Flabber, who's basically a cross between Elvis, Jay Leno, and Liberace. Flabber grants them a wish for freeing him, much like a genie, and actually he also often took after Robin Williams' genie from Aladdin, and they chose to become the real-life versions of their comic book heroes, the Big Bad Beetleborgs. However, the way Flabber grants this wish causes a little bit of trouble, as he basically uses a portal into the comic world to pull the Beetleborg powers into the real world, and this portal also allows the villains of the comic book to cross into the real world as well. Beetleborgs was actually another one of those that was surprisingly successful, getting a second season called Beetleborgs Metallics, and really only ended because they ran out of appropriate footage to adapt. Personally, though, I just never really got into it, and similar to Next Mutation, I recently attempted a rewatch and didn't get very far. For this one, I want to say about maybe 8 episodes. Number 7, Mighty Martian Emo Rangers. Aha! Now, heroes, now we have reached a true knockoff. Emo Rangers started literally as a joke that came to life. The two creators, Chris Phillips and Nick Pittom, have actually given 2 different accounts of just how that joke came about. One was that Chris was upset about a breakup and Nick told him to stop being emo, you emo ranger, and Chris replied, "You mighty Martian emo rangers." The other was that Chris was chatting with a different friend who sent him a picture of himself dressed as a ninja, and Chris said that the friend looked like an emo ranger and just couldn't get the term out of his head. The 2 of them made a low-budget fan film basically translating MMPR into emo tropes. Evil Empress, and that's actually the character's name, lands on the moon and creates a palace. She then sends a monster to destroy the British town of Chelmsford. This triggers the emo censors, awakening Captain Emo Head, their analog of Zordon, who, along with the help of Emo 5, recruits 5 depressed teenagers to become the Emo Rangers. Ross, the introspective White Ranger, Luke, the Chaos Mohawk Red Ranger, Steph, the Bleeding Heart Pink Ranger, John, the Chronic Stoner Green Ranger, and Viken, the Weeping Tears Yellow Ranger, battle Evil Empress and her villains. When the going gets too tough, they are joined by Phi, the Fashion X-Corps Purple Ranger. In a wrap-up movie, Mary Jane Greenfield becomes the Neo-Chronic Stoner Green Ranger. The fan film actually gained a surprising amount of success and ended up getting picked up by MTV in the UK and eventually brought over to the United States. The series only lasted 10 episodes over 2 seasons, counting the movies that both started and ended the series. Personally, I've only seen little bits and pieces of it, but what I have seen of it was really interesting and funny. And in researching it now, I was actually surprised to see just how involved it was. But I mean, it's not like I care or anything. Whatever. Number 6, Los Luchadores. We're back to Saban for this one, a completely original Toku-esque show that, to be completely honest with you, I had never even heard of until doing the research for this list. Really, it seems like Luchadores owes more to Batman than to Power Rangers. The show is about a team of lucha libres, Hispanic-style wrestlers, that fight crime in their city using their wrestling identities. They don't, that I'm aware of anyway, surface-level research, have any sort of superpowers, just bravery and their costumes and maybe some gadgets. In doing my research for this video, I actually found some full episodes of the series on YouTube, and I was kind of surprised. From what I can tell, the series was pretty decent. I'm almost tempted to piece together what I can. I don't believe there's any sort of like official DVD release or Netflix release or anything, and give the series a complete honest chance. It seemed like it was pretty well, decently performed, and the idea of a Power Rangers-like story about a team of heroes that don't have any superpowers seems kind of interesting. Number 5, Superhuman Samurai Cyber Squad. What is it about samurai shows and S's? Samurai Sentai Shinkenger had 3 S's, but this show has 4 S's. They even purposefully misspelled cyber to make that work. Anyway, here's what most people can tell you about Superhuman Samurai Cyber Squad. It starred a very young Matthew Lawrence. Here's what I can tell you. Long Name S Show was an adaptation of Denko Chojin Gridman, a Tsuburaya production. They were involved deeply in the adaptation as well, along with Ultracom and Deke, and in the same way that Bandai was deeply involved in the production of Power Rangers, Playmates was deeply involved in the production of this show. Also, it was originally going to be called Power Boy, but they wanted to avoid confusion with Power Rangers. The show ran for one 53-episode season. Sam Collins, played by Lawrence, was the leader of a band called Team Samurai. During a recording session, he's momentarily zapped into the digital world by a power surge and returns with a morpher on his wrist that he's unable to remove. Later on, he's zapped back into the digital world, this time transformed into the hero Servo, now fighting against megaviruses created by the military AI Kilocon, voiced by none other than Tim Curry. And no, I'm not kidding. You may have noticed that 4th S in the title, Squad. When Servo was unable to handle things on his own, he called on the help of Arsenal programs, which could help him fight the viruses on their own and also attach to him as transformative armor. Combining with Drago turned him into Formo, and Xenon turned him into Synchro. I have the absolute vaguest of memories of seeing some of 4S when it originally aired, but it wasn't a show that I followed regularly. I do find it to be a very creative adaptation now, though, and really one of the better attempts at aping and competing with Power Rangers. Number 4, VR Troopers. Now we're really getting into it. This is where that line I always talk about is. These are the shows that people are really going to remember. I'll give you a great example of that. Jim Sterling, who has an excellent video game editorial show called The Jimquisition on YouTube, did an episode recently about the resurgence of virtual reality in video games. He called that episode VR Troopers. The show just has kind of an odd staying power to it. A lot of people do remember it on a tier kind of just below Power Rangers. VR Troopers has a very odd history. Before it became clear that fans were going to demand Tommy Oliver's return to Power Rangers after being written off as the Green Ranger, Jason David Frank was set to lead this adaptation as a solo hero, with the show called Cybertron instead. When JDF ended up getting pulled back to Power Rangers, this show was reworked into a team show, kit-bashing 3 different Metal Hero series: Superhuman Machine Metalder, Dimensional Warrior Spielban, and Space Sheriff Scheider. And speaking of Scheider, by the way, this series, VR Troopers, aired in 1994. Scheider aired in 1984, a 10-year gap between original footage to adaptation, which is even longer than Kamen Rider Black RX to Masked Rider. The new lead was Brad Hawkins, an actor who would go on to have his own strange history with Power Rangers, voicing the Gold Zeo Ranger before his identity was revealed, but schedule conflicts with VR Troopers prevented him from actually portraying the Gold Ranger. Hawkins played Ryan Steele, a man looking for his missing father, Tyler. Not to be confused with Power Rangers Dino Charge, where Tyler was the one looking for his father. With the help of 2 of his friends, they end up finding a strange lab, and inside is a completely digitized man named Professor Horatio Hart, a friend of Tyler's. He explains that the 2 of them were working on extremely advanced virtual reality technology, and ended up discovering that virtual reality is actually an alternate dimension, and within that dimension there are mutants bent on world domination, etc., 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 ruled by a creature called Grimlord. Hart gives the 3 virtualizers, their morphers that give them advanced battle armor, and they fight in both the VR dimension and the real world. This show really had kind of a shoestring, seat-of-their-pants kind of feeling to it. Since this was adapting 3 different Toku shows, the 3 heroes were rarely, if ever, on screen at the same time. One of the only times that they were, original sequences called the Battle Grid, they wore very, very cheap spandex suits with repaints of the red Mighty Morphin Power Rangers helmet. Despite all of that, this was another show that was actually relatively successful. It nearly reached 100 episodes, and the only reason that it ended was a pretty common one for Saban. They ran out of appropriate footage to use. Number 3, Mystic Knights of Tir na Nog. You know, Haim Saban must have been getting really tired of successful shows that he had created having to end because of running out of appropriate footage to adapt. Big Bad Beetleborgs, VR Troopers, even Masked Rider, really. I just picture him imagining this children's media empire he could have built if those shows could have just kept going. But hey, the companies that made the original footage didn't make any more episodes, and he knew full well from Ju 2 that contracting them to make that footage for him was a little bit too costly of an endeavor. So what could he do? Well, why not just film the shows yourself? That way you can make sure you have all the footage that you need. If you want to make more seasons, it's just a matter of producing them yourself. And you can make sure that you keep the budget under control because you're the one in charge of production. So, Saban Entertainment took that bold step forward with Mystic Knights of Tir na Nog, the first American tokusatsu show to be completely original footage. The story is a little bit Arthurian, but really it centers on Irish mythology, as Tir na Nog is an Irish otherworld. An evil queen seeks to conquer the kingdom of Kells, and is granted monster-making sorcery by an evil fairy. The king of Kells sends an apprentice druid named Rohan to find the hero of prophecy, Draganta. He brings along his friend Angus, and on the way they're joined by Porn Prince Ivar and their own princess, Deirdre. They are drawn into Tir na Nog, whose king tests them and then grants them elemental powers. They're able to use those powers to defeat 4 evil sentinels, granting them clothing and the armor of fire, air, earth, and water. No heart, because this isn't Captain Planet. Instead, they're later joined by Prince Garrett of Reged, who uses the power of forest, and is honestly the closest thing this fandom has ever had to a brown ranger. Anyway, Mystic Knight seems to have been pretty ambitious and actually pretty good as well. I've really wanted to give this show a full watch, but I can't seem to find it anywhere. YouTube, Netflix, nothing. I really don't understand why it's not on Netflix when other Saban shows are. I now also wonder if Hasbro actually has the rights to it, but I guess we'll have to see on that. Anyway, in all seriousness, if any of you heroes know a way that I can watch Mystic Knights, please let me know down in the comments below. So, if they had all of the footage that they could ever need with the ability to create more whenever they wanted to, what ended up doing the show in? Two things: money and Power Rangers. A second season was planned. It was going to be called Mystic Knights Battle Thunder, and as a matter of fact, recently, John Green, GRN Ranger on Twitter, has been posting concept art scans of things from that second season. However, Power Rangers was not supposed to go on after Power Rangers in Space, so when Lost Galaxy was greenlit, they had to yank Battle Thunder's budget in order to make that happen, and they decided to prioritize Power Rangers. It's really kind of a shame, too. I would have been interested in seeing what this show would have done with the second season. If it had been just as or more successful, how might things be different today? Number 2, tattooed teenage alien fighters from Beverly Hills. Every top 10 list also features a nice curveball. I'm sure that some of you were wondering where this show was going to place, why I hadn't mentioned it to this point, and the possibility that I had even just forgotten it existed. No, heroes, because you see, this was a show that I watched on the regular, and I loved it. This show was very clearly intended to be a pure parody of Power Rangers, with all of its sillier aspects dialed up for comedic effect. But it ended up having a real charm to it and worked as its own entertaining show. When the evil Emperor Gorganis seeks to conquer Earth, the focal point of a network of power portals, a blobby alien named Nimbar recruits 4 teens from a Beverly Hills high school. A touch of his tendril, I guess, gives the 4 constellation-based tattoos in the form of Scorpio, Taurus, Centaur, and Apollo. These tattoos light up whenever Nimbar needs them, and a power portal would appear somewhere nearby. Sometimes in rather inconvenient spots, such as the girls' restroom. The 4 of them then stand on transo discs and, calling out their constellation, are transformed into galactic sentinels. The sentinels are kind of mixtures of Ultraman and Battle Fever J, giant and spandex clad, but also with some skin and hair visible. They fight against the monsters of Gorganis, who are always giant sized. There's no on-the-ground little type stuff. However, they are able to combine. When the going gets tough, they can interlock their arms into a square and form a single warrior called Nitron. This show, whose acronym is even too long to say on the regular, fine, I guess I'll say it once, TTAFFBH, really towed the line between parody and knockoff. Like I said, it was clearly intended to be a parody with those silly elements played up, but on the most part, it took itself pretty seriously. And by the way, a little bit of trivia for you. Did Power Rangers once take a little bit of inspiration from it? In one episode, one of the Sentinels is badly injured and needs to be temporarily replaced by another named Rick. Rick is an alien that is the sole survivor of his planet from an attack by Gorganis. He is filled with anger and pain and angst over this. In his Sentinel form, he wears a silver suit and is based on the constellation Orion. In Power Rangers Super Mega Force, the Silver Ranger, whose name is Orion, is the sole survivor of his planet, or at least he may have thought. Seems like a little bit more than a coincidence. Number 1. Kamen Rider Dragon Knight. I have a feeling I'm going to get some flack in the technicality department for this one, since, once again, people are going to tell me that Kamen Rider is not a knockoff of Power Rangers, and this time, since this one was not made by Saban, I can't even really consider it a spinoff. I'm going to say the same thing that I said about Ninja Turtles. When you make a toku show in America, you are clearly taking inspiration from Power Rangers, using the same formulas as Power Rangers, and hoping for the same success as Power Rangers. Kamen Rider Dragon Knight is really an excellent series. It was done seriously with drama and gravitas, although there was humor in there, of course, obviously. William O'Leary provides a master turn as the villain of the series, General Zabiax. And while the show does focus on a small group of heroes as the primary main characters, there are a large number of riders throughout, and you know that's something that I like. This one's another missing dad story, showing that Saban was not the only one using that thing all the freaking time, as a man named Kit Taylor searches for his missing father and instead finds a morpher, in this case an advent deck, a deck of cards and holder that allows someone to transform into a Kamen Rider. He ends up forming a contract with a red dragon he keeps seeing in reflective surfaces, making him Kamen Rider Dragon Knight. The Kamen Riders were originally from Ventara, a parallel world to Earth that the riders could go to and from via reflective surfaces like mirrors. Xaviax basically defeated all of the Ventaran Kamen Riders, though we end up learning later that he had some rather significant help in doing so, and captured most of their decks. The war, however, did extensive damage to Ventara, so now Xaviax plans to capture the human race and bring them to Ventara to act as slave labor to fix it. As I said, Xaviax is an excellent villain. He is sneaky and conniving, able to change forms and personalities. He seeks out the human equivalents of the Ventaran Riders, their mirror images if you will, to trick them into using the decks and working for him. Perhaps his most evil act, and this is something of a minor spoiler, but I'm not going to give too many details about it or how it ends, is when Xaviax was able to become a Kamen Rider himself. He found one of the equivalents of the Ventaran Riders in a coma and entered his body, using it as a puppet to become Kamen Rider Wrath. Kamen Rider Dragon Knight was an excellent show that was completely ruined by the network it aired on. It aired on CW's 4Kids morning block, and they would either air it incredibly early in the morning or not announce when it was going to be and randomly change the air times. Then, disappointed in the show's low ratings that they caused, they pulled the show off the air with 2 episodes left in the season. Not being absolute idiots, just mostly idiots, they did post those final 2 episodes on their website, allowing fans to, see how the story ended. It was the strength of this show and how the network treated it that makes me say this with complete confidence, and this is something I've actually said before. If Nickelodeon or Hasbro or whatever got the rights to this show and aired it 100% as is alongside Power Rangers with a little bit of promotion and regular scheduling, they could start a Kamen Rider franchise in the United States. The only reason this show did not take off is because nobody could watch it. So, there you go. As I said, it was kind of a stretch for me to actually make this a complete top 10 list. There were some shows, like Los Luchadores, for example, that I hesitated including, but in the end I felt like it was better to have a full top 10 list with a couple of questionable entries than something like a top 8 list. But enough about what I think. What do you think? Let's take a look at the viewer's choice. So the voting for this one was a little messed up, and that's nobody's fault but my own. Besides the unusual messed up schedule, for lack of a better term, I've had going with these videos, I kind of forgot to include a call for votes in the last hiatus video. So I was only able to do so by making a community post to my channel page, and I know that not everybody sees those. So we've only got 5 votes here, but we do still have a clear winner. Tied for second place, I guess, are Tattooed Teenage Alien Fighters from Beverly Hills and Big Bad Beetleborgs with 1 vote each. But the clear winner with 3 votes was Kamen Rider Dragon Knight. Thank you for voting, everyone. The winner of the channel shoutout for this week is Movie Critic, pretty much because he specifically said that he wouldn't. See what happens? Thanks for voting, everybody. Next time, the off-season of hiatus finally comes to an end, and boy, do I mean finally. It was scheduled originally to end with a recap of the first 8 episodes of Power Rangers Ninja Steel, which then turned into a recap of the entire first season of Power Rangers Ninja Steel. And now that we're 8 episodes into Super Ninja Steel, there's really no point in that. So that whole idea was canceled and replaced with something else that I'm now really late on. So tune in for the finale of the off-season of hiatus videos, my take on #PowerForceLives, and my Power Rangers story. That's going to do it for another Power Rangers off-season of hiatus video. Thank you, heroes, so much as always for watching. In the comments below, let me know what you thought of my list of these knockoffs and spin-offs. And for a fun question for you to answer, pick your favorite Power Rangers knockoff or spin-off and conceptualize another season for it. Let me know what you think would happen in the next season of that show if it had been allowed to go on. Make sure to subscribe to my channel to see all my videos and also ring the bell. Get your notifications set up so you can be notified of whenever I post brand new videos, such as these Power Rangers off-season of hiatus videos, even though there's only one more of them. And if you would like to financially support my channel in any way, at any amount, go to digitaltipjar.com/orangerangerbid, toss your tip change in there, and I'd be deeply appreciative of whatever lands inside. Until next time, heroes, may the power protect you. Okay, sorry. Make sure to edit this part out, by the way. Hello there, brave warriors, and welcome. I actually up. And right off the bat, we're starting with a questionable entry. Number 7, Mighty Martian, Chronic Stoner Green Ranger, and Viken, the Weeping Tears Yellow Emo Ranger. Crud. In a wrap-up movie, Mary Jane Greenfield becomes the Neo-Chronic Stoner Green. We're back to Saban for Saban. Wow, there were a lot of things wrong with the tape. And I was really quite surprised. The series was actually pretty decent from what yeah. Long Name S Show was an adaptation of Denko Kocha. Long Name S Show was an adaptation of Denko Chojin Gridman, a Subaraya production. Subaraya. Long Name S Show was an adaptation of something else. Not to be confused with Power Rangers Dino Charge, where Tyler was missing. That's frustrating! The new lead was Brad Hawkins. You know, Heinz Saban must have been getting really tired of shows that were seen as relatively Big Bad Beetleborgs, BR Troopers, even Masked Rider to an extent. Instead, they are later joined by Prince somebody of whose place. So when Lost Galaxy was greenlit, they needed to steal... Yeah, I did that really wrong. A second season of the show was planned. It was going to be called, something good. What was it that did... Unfortunately, they needed to yank Battle Thunder's budget in order to make that happen. Number 2. Tattoo Teenage Alien Fighters from Beverly Hills. The 4 then stand on Transo discs and are transformed into Galactic Sentinels. The Sentinels... They fight against the monsters of Gorganis, who are always giant, by the way. I don't even know where I am. They can form Nitron. Let me know